So, big mechs. We love them regardless of how practical they are. They fill a very basic, almost primal chaotic need within humans to see destruction on an epic scale. Like, we put them in stories whenever we can just because they're really cool. Especially the Japanese. If aliens ever visited Japan, they'd probably think Gundams and Evangelions were deities of some kind with just how popular they are. Their devotion to giant robots has also inspired the rest of the world to create big names when it comes to mechs, like BattleTech. So what is BattleTech? Well, originally it was a setting for a tabletop game with big mechs who carry even bigger guns, but it's gotten into a lot of different media over the years. There's also a lot more to it than just the mechs. It also has combined arms with infantry, aerospace fighters, and even spaceships. But let's just say the mechs are on top of the food chain in this setting. It's also a universe filled with massive interstellar nations led by great houses that are constantly going at each other Game of Thrones style, all in an effort to try and control an area of space called the Inner Sphere, which, as the name implies, is kind of a circle of colonized space around Earth which is hundreds of light years across, with thousands of worlds divided among those great houses. Now, while the setting is in the future, there have been some ups and maybe some downs over the centuries, but let's say there have been some really big downs, with society going backwards into feudalism and multiple massive wars in which billions of people have died thanks to the great houses being a little too trigger happy with the nuclear option, and wiping out so much tech and knowledge that humanity has regressed a little bit and lost the ability to make a lot more of the advanced stuff it used to. No, not that much. You don't need prayers and tons of incense to get stuff working in this setting. Though there are guys who like to wear robes and keep technology to themselves, though that's a whole nother story. Anyway, this universe still has a grasp on the actual science of making giant mechs, though to keep fighting those wars after so much destruction, they kinda run on slightly inferior aftermarket parts and are using salvage from destroyed mechs, as the OEMs are going to need a few centuries to figure out how to rebuild their factories and rediscover tech from what's left in all those nuclear craters. Also, with so much conflict, it's a perfect environment for mercenaries to spring up to help fill the gaps in armies the great houses keep losing. Now, there have been quite a few bits of media and games over the years that have used the BattleTech setting, like MechWarrior 2, which I played a bit of back in the day, and that 90s BattleTech cartoon that used some fairly rough early 3D graphics for the mech fights.
Is this some kind of joke?
You dare to refuse my bajal?
Refuse your what?
But while I thought it was all cool stuff, it never really stuck with me. I did hear about it over the years, like the legal troubles with mech designs, and saw mention of a few games, but most of it passed under the radar for me. Believe it or not, I had a similar view of Warhammer 40k quite a few years back.
What?
Like, I thought it was interesting, but I didn't get into it.
Wait!
That was until Warhammer 40k Space Marine, where over the course of playing it and experiencing its story, while slaughtering an endless horde of orcs, something triggered in my head and I was like, oh shit, I get it now. This is great, I need to know more. And that's when I fell down the rabbit hole of Luton 40k lore videos and haven't come back since. I can't really explain how cool it was, almost out of nowhere, finding a setting that has so much interesting history and deep lore that you can explore and just get lost in. So yeah, when I picked up this BattleTech game and started playing it while going through its well done story and gameplay, yeah, it happened again and something clicked in my head and I just got it. And I needed to know more, which led me to fall down the rabbit hole of BattleTech videos from MechFrog, Sven van der Plank and Big Red 40Tech, who all make great videos about BattleTech. Just watch out for MechFrog's Tales from the Periphery series of videos. He'll play with your emotions. Don't let that innocent smile fool you. So why did this game have that effect on me? Well, I think it's because it nailed the core vibes of the world it's telling a story in, and the gameplay immersed me in what it's like to be in this universe. So to me it's very appropriate that this game is named BattleTech. In my opinion, it's probably one of the best games to get you into the setting. It's got a great war story mixed in with some political intrigue that shows off the noble houses' power plays and schemes, while also showing the struggle of daily life as a mercenary fighting for one of these houses, which you get a feel for from the mechanics and gameplay of running a mercenary company that uses giant mechs to wreak havoc on behalf of these nobles. All of this is thanks to the game's developer harebrainedschemes, who on a very reasonable budget from a Kickstarter campaign managed to make a top tier game that in my opinion is very close to being the equal of a modern XCOM game, which for an indie studio to do while working in such tight limits is near divine magic of some kind. Like, these devs knew the mechs might get people's attention, but the gameplay and story is what would really get people into BattleTech. You can see this with the choices of where and when the game is set in, as the timeline in BattleTech is big. Like, it spans centuries with wars and events that affects hundreds of worlds and has lore that reaches the depths only Warhammer 40k surpasses. So the devs chose to set the game in an era in which mercenaries are at their most influential, and instead of having the main story being that you fight for one of the great houses, where your merc company, while needed, is barely going to make an impact in shaping the outcome of maybe some regional border skirmishes. Instead, during this story, you'll fight for a periphery nation on the edge of the inner sphere that, while tiny compared to any of the great houses, is still like an interstellar state with multiple planets under its control, but small enough that one talented company of mercs could change the fate of that nation, and still be able to do some work on the side for any of the great houses, who, like any powerful nations, want to throw their weight around, even if it is on the edge of space they barely care about. But before we get into all of that, let's quickly chat about how this game looks. Now, the visual style of BattleTech in general, and specifically the mechs from what I've seen, has gone through some changes over the years, with early designs, let's say, being very heavily influenced by Japan mecha anime from the 80s, some which still looks great and others were fun, but very goofy looking, and the general style was a little all over the place. Though as time has progressed, more modern redesigns have given the mechs a more distinctive heavy industrial look that makes it pretty easy to tell they're from the BattleTech universe, which gets carried through into this game. Like, you aren't going to confuse these mechs for Gundams, maybe some other IPs though. All the mechs are great, and the designs give you a general idea what role they're intended for on the battlefield. From the light 20-ton Locust, which looks like it was made for pure speed and not firepower, to the assault 100-ton monster that is the Atlas, that while not fast looks like it has enough armor and firepower to go a few rounds against Godzilla. There are some slightly silly designs left over from the past, like the Urban Mech, which to me looks like the designers thought, what if we made R2-D2 taller and just strapped a big ass cannon to him? It's apparently a very popular mech among BattleTech fans. To me though, it looks more cute than intimidating, and seems a little useless in most situations. But I can kinda see why it's a fan favourite. It's got a bit of that goofball underdog vibe going, though I still wouldn't want to be seen in one. Luckily the game does have a fair amount of cool looking mechs for you to blow stuff up with and even punch. Which all the visual effects for, like the lasers, autocannons and missiles, are pretty good, and it's really satisfying seeing one of your mechs get a melee kill in any of the missions you go on. Speaking of which, the level designs are pretty solid with decent bits of detail and quite a lot of variation, from snowy mountains, arid deserts to thick jungles, even moons with little to no atmosphere, and planets that are close to looking like Mars.
Who fights over a place like this?
All shown off at various times of the day, and will have you thinking about using the different features of the landscape for cover and elevation to gain an advantage on the enemies you face. Not only that, but the different environments will affect your mechs and how well they manage their heat levels, because if it's chilly outside, you can shoot a little bit more often, without the risk of overheating your mechs and turning your pilots into baked potatoes. But if the weather is closer to the Sahara Desert, then there's a good chance they'll become extra crispy, if you go in all guns blazing. Say you'll need to be a little selective about how often you shoot, but say if there's a pool of water nearby, you can use that to cool off your mech faster. And the environment can do other things, like mud will make you more stable but reduce your speed, and trees will give you additional cover. It's all pretty good at keeping each mission different and interesting, considering most missions are going to be in open unpopulated areas with maybe a base or outpost somewhere on the map. There are some urban areas you can fight in if you have the DLC for it, which I'll go into detail later. But these urban areas tend to slow down the game's performance a bit, and I think it's because most of the buildings are destructible. But overall, most of the environments do a decent job of giving a sense of scale to the mechs and how remote and isolated these periphery solar systems are. The UI for the game is pretty good too. It's clean, useful, navigating the different parts of your ship is quick and easy.
Greetings, Commander. Come on in.
And in combat, the ability to see what changes to your hit percentage for your weapons will be when moving to a new position is very helpful. Also, another nice touch is you can hover over words in the chat screen and get a little summary of the lore the game is referring to. It's a nice easy way to learn all the bits of lore in the universe, from Seabills to Stefan and Morris. And this is one of the few games where I didn't mind the loading screens as much as I usually do, because of how chilled and great looking the space travel is. Another thing I liked about the visuals were the well done motion comic cutscenes. I really dug the art style. They remind me a little of the ones in the Homeworld games, though they have their own vibe, and do a great job of capturing the mood and atmosphere that is BattleTech. Also, it's great for showing the emotions of characters and setting the tone for critical moments in the story. But what really makes these scenes go hard and pushes it over the top is the music. soundtrack in the game is amazing and is now one of my favorites. It uses strings and orchestral music mixed with analog synths and a chorus to give the game a familiar but still unique sound. That gives the game's world a sense of history for past triumphs that now seem lost to never-ending wars. It's really good at setting a tone that things used to be much better, but we've got to keep going even if things aren't so great right now. But also the music isn't afraid to go epic at times with the chorus to get you amped up to brawl and blast some enemy mechs. Most of the really good music is saved to highlight important parts of the story, with the rest of the tracks for your regular missions being more steady war beat to let you focus on the task at hand. Sometimes it will be more heroic and upbeat. And other times a little dramatic to stress that the odds are against you. You can also tell they put a lot of effort into even the ambient music you hear on your ship when you're out of battle, as each time you select a different room on your ship, the track will change slightly to reflect that room's vibe. My favorite one is for the mech bay. It's got these little bits of ambient mechanical sounds mixed in with monk chanting that makes the mechs feel like they're sacred pieces of history the engineers are working on. I love stuff like that. They really did get a lot out of this game's small budget. But it does show a bit with how the game uses text without voiceovers for large portions of the game, which is a shame since the voice work that is in the game is great. Like, the writing is good even without someone reading the lines, but does get even better with performances from the voice cast.
My father used to tell me stories about the ancient times, about the Star League, a golden age of prosperity, upheld by the great mech warriors of old, guardians of the innocent, protectors of the peace. I always dreamed of following in their footsteps. I was too young to see the truth of things.
I really enjoyed Lady Arano's commanding speeches and the bits of dialogue you get from your ship's crew, like the comms chatter you'll hear while going through the ship's menus, which is a mix of professionals getting stuff done and some shenanigans.
Darius, we've got a couple of blackout drunk mech warriors stumbling around in hydroponics. I'd suggest you take care of it before they break something. Yeah, alright, I'm on it.
You won't get much voiceover outside the story missions, but they did give some cool call-out lines for mech warriors when following orders or doing an action, and managed to give them a fair bit of character from the few voice lines you'll hear out on missions. Some are fairly happy-go-lucky,
Ooh, a jungle! Look at it!
while others might have some interpersonal issues.
This snow reminds me of my childhood. I hated my childhood.
And since we're talking about the mech pilots, let's chat about the gameplay. There are a few different modes to play the game, like Campaign, where you'll go through the game's story while also doing regular contract jobs around the galaxy map as it opens up after story missions, or Career, where there's no story but you can go where you like from the start and do missions for your favorite faction, or Skirmish, where you can set up battles and mess around with different mech builds. To me though, the Campaign is the best part of the game. You'll get to create a player character pilot who you can customize the look of a little and decide on the background for, as well as some stats. It's fun for a little role playing, but isn't going to affect the story too much. Like, you'll get dialogue choices linked to the character's history you chose, but it's more for flavor. The story will be vague enough so you can fill in the blanks of why you're fighting, which is fine, but don't get your hopes up for multi-branching story or different endings. They did however add DLC that lets you make choices in open world missions called flashpoints, but I'll get into that later. The regular contracts you'll take outside the story ones are linear with a fair amount of variety to them, with maybe some bonus objectives you can do to earn some extra money, which is usually worth it, since apart from bashing big mechs against each other, you'll be managing the finances of your mercenary company, which is in a mountain of debt when you first start the story. Also, the banks don't want you wandering around too much in case you try to bail on them. So you're limited at the start to doing work on a few slightly backwater worlds. They seem mostly okay. Though there was one I was a little hesitant to visit.
No, not Detroit! No! No, please! Anything but that!
Anyway, it's fine as long as you don't go crazy with your money at the start of the game. Like, don't go hiring extra pilots or refitting your mechs. You'll get to play around with that stuff after you have some extra cash in the bank. Just focus on keeping your mechs from blowing up on missions or your pilots from getting too many brain injuries. Minor repairs for your mech's armor can quickly get sorted and don't cost a lot. But if you get major damage, that will take a lot longer to fix, which means it might not be available for your next contract and will cost a lot to repair. It's kind of the same for your pilots. If they get an injury, they'll need a while to recover, but they can take a hit or two, just don't be reckless. Or you'll either have a mech warrior in the ICU for a long time or just dead. After you survived a few contracts and got some spare cash, then you can get into the fun stuff such as refitting your mechs, which could be a bit daunting at first since you might not know your PPCs from your LRMs, or that you can only put specific weapons on certain parts of the mech, or that mechs have weight limits for armor and equipment. The game does give you some light tutorials on this stuff, and most of the descriptions for all the parts will give you a good idea what to do, though it's a fair bit to learn, and the game could be a bit better at teaching you how to make a good loadout. So you might be tempted not to mess with the mechs and keep them with stock parts, but trust me, you'll have a better time in missions if you learn how to refit your mechs, as the default loadouts are a little all over the place. There are plenty of guides on YouTube or Steam to learn how to make solid loadouts. I'll put a few in the description. And if you learn how to do it, you can do things like specialize your mechs by equipping them with only lasers and autocannons, which when combined with precision strikes will literally help you pick enemy mechs apart. Or have a mech squad of a very mobile scouting mech that can jump around a lot and keep the enemy busy, while your mechs with long range missiles wear them down from a distance. Also, by learning how to set up your mechs, you will appreciate more the loot you get after missions and will automatically start thinking, I want to put better parts in my mech. Especially double heatsinks. I started getting strangely excited whenever I saw those in any of the in-game stores. Speaking of loot, apart from getting better equipment after battles, you can also get mech parts, which if you get 3 of the same parts for a specific mech, your engineers will stick them together and you'll have a new mech to play with, that you can use to either upgrade your lineup, or if you don't want it, you can sell it for a nice stack of extra cash. It becomes a very fun part of the gameplay, as a weird thing will start to happen as you play. At first, when bigger enemy mechs start showing up in missions, you'll probably be like, oh, that's a problem. But as you play, that'll slowly change to you getting excited, because while you might be in for a tough fight, if you win, and depending on how you take out the enemy mech, you might get enough parts from it to make a new more powerful mech for yourself. It's a pretty cool way the game makes you eager to see what you'll face next on the ever increasingly difficult missions with tougher mechs. But on the other side of how well you're going to do in combat are your pilots, better known as mech warriors.
Did you see that? Did you see it?
The skills you pick for them as they level up are going to determine how well they do in certain roles. Because the game does let you stick any mech warrior in any mech you want, though you should probably put them in a mech that takes advantage of their skills. Like if you have a mech you're going to use as a scout, then having a pilot with a sensor lock ability is very useful, since it will reveal an enemy within sensor range for a turn and remove some evasion from them. Or say you've got a mech with a lot of weapons on them. While they can do a lot of damage to a single target, it can be a little overkill, so you end up wasting the extra damage or just not using it. But if you put a pilot in their mech with a multi-targeting ability, now instead of maybe destroying just one target on a turn, you can take out many and not waste all the potential damage their mech can dish out. There aren't many skills for pilots, but they are super useful if you pair them up with the right mechs, and as they level up they do get passive traits too, which can help to specialize pilots into certain loadouts. Like the call shot trait is great for direct fire weapons and will make it more likely for you to blow up the more dangerous parts of enemy mechs more easily, making them less of a problem during a fight. And you can even target where the ammo is on the enemy, and if you hit that, then enjoy the fireworks. Also, every once in a while you'll be able to take a chance and maybe get a headshot, which feels amazing to get since it both instantly takes out the enemy mech and gets you the maximum amount of parts to loot after the battle. Okay, so combat itself is broken up into phases where all the light mechs go first, then medium and heavy and so on. While in a phase each mech's turn will bounce back between you and the enemy. It gives the battles a nice bit of back and forth instead of each side waiting really long for their turn, and gives the lighter mechs a chance against the bigger ones. Not much of a chance, but it's something. Though while you're doing all that fun stuff, you'll also have to manage how much armor is left on your mechs, by making sure all your mechs face the enemy where armor is still thick, and trying to keep the more vulnerable bits out of the enemy's line of fire, especially your rear. There is a way to avoid damage, and that's by building up evasion, which you gain by moving. Basically, the more you move, the more you get, up to a certain limit. And the higher the evasion, the less likely you are to take a hit, but it gets reduced every time the enemy takes a shot at you. Also, evasion can't save you from melee damage, so if your tiny mech with a ton of evasion on it gets too close to a big mech, it's gonna turn into spare parts. While dealing with all of that, you'll also need to make sure your mechs don't overheat, as firing massive lasers and big autocannons does make your mechs get a little toasty, that if you let get out of hand can damage the internal structure of the mech. And if it gets really bad, the mech will shut down and be a sitting duck for a turn. Oh, and cook the pilot too. So to avoid that, you'll need to take into account the environment you're fighting in, as you can get away with being more trigger happy in the snow than some alien planet's version of Death Valley. Though being selective about how many of your weapons you fire will be the most effective way to deal with the heat, which is a little tough since the urge to fire one large salvo every turn, I'll admit, is very hard to resist. But there is another way to let your mechs cool off while still doing damage that doesn't require using high energy weapons, and that's by punching or stomping on the enemy, as that doesn't generate that much heat. It's a little risky sometimes to get in close, but it's better than standing around and waiting to cool off. Also, it's more fun and satisfying. But that's just the mechs. On the mech warrior side of things, you'll need to manage resolve during fights, which is this blue bar thing over here. You'll always be getting resolve each turn, but you'll get more for hitting and taking out enemies. And once the resolve bar is filled, your team gets inspired and gets a bit of an improved accuracy bonus. But the most useful benefit is that you can use resolve abilities that will drain the bar but are very worth it to use often, like the precision strike, which will let one of your mech warriors not only improve the accuracy of the shot for a turn, but you can also target specific parts of the enemy mech, which is really powerful because most mechs can take a fair amount of damage when it's spread out over all its armor. But if you can focus on one part, you can either make the enemy less dangerous by destroying the bits where its weapons are attached, or focusing on its legs and getting a knockdown, which makes the enemy mech super vulnerable and lets the rest of your team make cold shots on its sensitive bits for as long as it's down. Speaking about knockdowns, the other way to knock down an enemy is to do stability damage to it, which missiles and high impact weapons like autocannons and melee hits are good for. And once you fill that yellow stability damage bar on a mech, they'll fall over like a freshly cut tree. Just be careful, as the enemy can do the same to you. This is where the other resolve ability called Vigilance comes in, as not only will it increase your mech's defense for a turn, it'll get rid of all the stability damage your mech might have gotten. Very useful in rough encounters later in the game. Another thing that will help you win fights is just checking what the loadout and condition of the enemy mechs are. Like if you see an enemy mech has a lot of flamethrowers on it, then don't let it get anywhere near you. Pick it off at range. Or say you're a little outnumbered by pirate mechs, which might make you a bit worried. But if you check how well maintained the mechs are, you'll notice that they're not in great shape and have reduced armor, so they're more bark than bite. It's pretty cool how all these different mechanics keep the combat interesting. But that's only one side of the gameplay. The other is the mercenary business simulator, where you're managing a tight budget at first, but if you do well in contracts, your rep goes up with the faction you did the job for, which means you earn more money and get extra salvage on the next job. And the salvage can be more important than the money you earn, because remember, if you get 3 mech parts, you get a new mech. So sometimes in contract negotiations, it's better to go for more salvage that you get to pick from instead of getting whatever random equipment the game decides to throw at you, which will probably be a lot of medium lasers. With all this extra money, you can invest in improvements in your ship to make it so that both your pilots and mechs get fixed up quicker and can have more of them on standby. And even invest in some fun stuff like a lounge and a low G pool, which have the benefit of improving morale. That can actually help quite a lot, since if you have high morale going to combat, that means you have more resolve per round, and be able to use those very useful resolve abilities way more often. So happy crew means better pew pew.
Confirmed.
Another thing that can happen while you're traveling to your next contract is these little story events that can be anything from mech warriors arguing with each other to dealing with a distress call or helping the crew deal with some problems they're going through. All of them require you to make choices that sometimes have very little effect, and others they can end up so bad that maybe you injure a pilot and they have to sit out a few missions. I enjoyed these, they help me get attached to the crew, and if they are just small side stories. They do repeat a little, but there are quite a few that are unique and really play up the mercenary lifestyle and the problems that come with that. Okay, so that's all great. What's the catch with this game? Well, there aren't any big problems, just minor ones that I should probably bring up. Like the game wants you to hire lots of mech warriors, and the upgrades for your ship lets you have plenty of space for them, but the game doesn't do a great job at encouraging you to do this for a few reasons. Like your pilots can get injuries that take them out of action for a while, which would mean hiring more to cover for them, but you can get away for most of the game by just having 1 or 2 spare mech warriors. On top of that, you do get equipment for your mechs that reduce pilot injuries enough that it hardly becomes a problem past the middle of the game, unless you play a fair bit more riskier. Also, your pilots do take long to level up over the campaign, so you're going to lean on your more experienced mech warriors for most of the missions as they are more effective. I think the devs were aware of this since there are training modules on the ship to give experience to pilots out of combat, but it's too little and not an interesting solution gameplay wise. Oh, and your pilot salaries go up as they get better, so in a game that's encouraging you to manage your finances tightly, you'll probably want to cut corners and use as few pilots as you can get away with. Even though by the middle of the game you could afford a few extra pilots. Yeah, this game will get you to start thinking like a game publisher CEO. No! Which is kinda horrible, but that's what systemic problems do. All of this combined together makes it so you're a lot less likely to get a big roster going, which is a shame as having more pilots with different skill sets would encourage more experimenting with various mech builds. And it's not impossible to fix, like they wouldn't need to make injuries worse or reduce mech warrior salaries like some greedy game publisher executive would. They could borrow a few things from XCOM 2 and use a fatigue system for your pilots so you couldn't take the best ones in every mission, and would need a bigger roster to compensate. Also maybe make leveling up easier or give pilots interesting ways to get experience, like sending some of them out on side missions that either don't require mech or just need one or two of them that you don't need to command directly over unless something bad happens. All of that might work, but I'm not a game dev. Maybe there are better solutions or they just didn't have enough time or budget to tweak things. Like I said earlier, it's not a big problem, just something I noticed. There are other small problems like it's a little too easy to get locked out of doing work for factions once your rep gets too low with them, especially for one of them in the story campaign. And once your mercenary rep gets high enough, all lower difficulty contracts mostly disappear from the map, which makes the majority of them a bit of a slog to get through. I would have preferred a mix of more different difficulties on the map for variety's sake. Like, give me the occasional job that maybe doesn't pay well, but I get to have some fun wrecking enemies. There are also small things that I enjoyed that I wish they went further with. So on some contract missions you'll get teamed up with another group of mechs that you'll have to work with. Sometimes you'll have no direct control over them, and others you will. These were quite fun, like there's one where you work with very green rookies who are in urban mechs but are very enthusiastic. I love the call signs for these goofballs. And another one where you work with professionals who pretty much act like arseholes because they don't think they need help from you, but bite off more than they can chew. These are great. The thing is, these missions get repeated with the same setup each time, and the pilot's acting like this is the first time they've met you, and nothing beyond that. Like, there's so much potential for interesting stories to develop from these encounters. Say for instance, maybe help the rookie survive their first mission, and they later go on to randomly show up on a patrol in a mission and help you. Or maybe those pros get teamed up with you again, and they treat you with slightly more respect. Or even resent you for helping last time. If the game did something like that, it would make it feel like you're having a more personal impact on the world and making a name for your mercenary company. The game does have a reputation system where the more work you do for one faction, the more positive rep and bonuses you get. It's an okay system, and you'll need to think a bit about the jobs you take and who you're working against, because if you keep doing damage to another faction enough, they'll pay you less on jobs you do for them and they might lock you out completely. There is a bit of an incentive to keep things balanced among most factions, because if you get on their bad side, suddenly the prices at their stores will go way up. But if you get on the good side, you can become an ally and get access to their top tier equipment at discount prices. The system is solid, however it's a little undercooked for me, and it felt like another missed chance to tell stories around these factions. But this is where some of the DLC comes in and adds some nice extras like flashpoints, which are contracts but with more story to them, and they let you make choices that affect how they turn out. Some of which are pretty interesting and that match the quality of the writing in the main story. Also, you get some nice rare loot from these contracts too. These DLCs also add new environments like jungles and urban areas for you to fight in. And they add more weapons, equipment and mechs to the base game story and career mode for you to both brawl and add to your collection. There are some problems with the DLCs, like the Flashpoint one is more suited to the career mode than the story one, because if you start the game in story mode, then Flashpoints will only be available after you finish the campaign. And by that point you'll be very overpowered for some of the lower level flashpoints, and the loot you get from even some of the harder ones won't be all that amazing. Whereas if you play in career mode, then you gain access to them fairly early and the rewards feel more useful. I mean, I still like doing some of the flashpoints after the main campaign just to see the stories, but I can see why some might not have. They could have maybe made some of the lower level flashpoints available during the main story, but perhaps it was too difficult to balance and implement. Also, when the DLCs were released, they were a little pricey for what they were offering, though now they do go on sale fairly often from what I can see, so it might be worth it to you for some extras to add to the base game. Or if you don't like those, there are plenty of good mods to mess around with for this game. But if you're going to get any of the DLCs, the one I'll recommend is Heavy Metal. It's the one I really enjoyed and got the most out of. It has some great mechs that each has special equipment only they get that give them some great traits that I wish were in more of the mechs in the base game. Like the Warhammer is amazing with energy weapons because of its optimized capacitors. Also, the Flashpoint story that comes with the DLC is great to go through after the main story is done. It's longer than a normal Flashpoint and has a really interesting premise involving a lost ship with tech that could be dangerous in the wrong hands, with loot and rewards that feel very much worth it even late into the game. And for me there was an extra bonus because after finishing the game's main story, like I'd mentioned earlier, I'd fallen into the lore rabbit hole that is BattleTech. And while playing this DLC, I'd just finished watching a video that referred to one of the most dangerous mech warriors in all of BattleTech. Then her name popped up in the Flashpoint story and I was like... It was really cool because knowing her rep and how dangerous she is, and this might sound a little silly, but it made me a little worried about eventually having to fight her, and all your crew really play up how dangerous she is. Without spoiling too much, all I'll say is the game didn't disappoint. The fight involving her is one of the hardest in the game. It was a really fun bit of lore mixed into the game that, if the main story gets you into BattleTech, I think you'll enjoy too. Speaking of which, let's chat about the story. So we start out as a mech warrior who works as a royal guard for a periphery nation called the Oregon Reach that's ruled by the Arana family. You serve alongside your mentor Sir Raju Mastiff Montgomery, a tough old veteran who's seen it all. Things aren't all that great though, as the High Lord recently died and the kingdom is in a bit of a decline, with the much bigger nations on the border looking like they could take advantage. This is causing a divide between the heir to the throne Lady Kamea and her uncle Lord Espinosa on how to take things forward. Lord Espinosa is very pragmatic, to the point he's willing to do some unethical stuff to make the nation stronger, while Lady Kamea, who's an idealist, wants to fix things without having to give up her morals. They don't really settle things, and the day of Lady Kamea's coronation comes up with you and Raju having to escort her to the ceremony. Things still seem civil as Kamea and her cousin, Lord Espinosa's daughter, Victoria, have some friendly banter about their upcoming mech tournament match to celebrate the coronation. I'm sure everything will go fine and nobody will do anything drastic.
You will face former comrades, or even loved ones, on the battlefield. I take up arms against my own niece. But remember, today we sacrifice so that tomorrow we can return our kingdom to its proper glory, to its proper strength. So should you fall tonight, know that you did so as true heroes of the Reach. To your stations, for the Directorate!
So on the way to the coronation, while Lady Kamea says she's gonna miss piloting a battle mech, which is like a cop saying they're one day away from retirement, Raju notices some smoke in the distance.
This is damned odd, and I don't like it. Kid, keep your head on a swivel and be ready for anything.
And further up the road we get ambushed by some traitor royal guards. We make quick work of them and then get contacted by Kamea's close friend and advisor Alexander, who warns us about a slaughter happening in the city and suggests we regroup outside it where it's safer.
Traitors in the guard. And I fear this is only the beginning. Follow me, keep close, and remember your training. Things are likely to get ugly between here and there.
Not only has Lord Espinosa gotten some of the royal guards to betray Kamea with a brutal sneak attack, but he also managed to sabotage some of the mechs on our side too. Her uncle has really covered all his bases when planning this. There is a little hope though when what's left of any loyal forces gather in the market district to make a last stand when...
Alexander!
Yeah, looks like we're on our own. And this is when we get a call from Victoria, who's also part of the coup. She sees Kamea as too weak to rule, but still, she is family and doesn't want to kill her, so offers her the chance to surrender. Though Kamea kindly refuses the offer.
Attention, all Espinosa forces. This is Lady Victoria Espinosa. Lady Arano is to be apprehended and taken alive by my command. Fail to follow these instructions, and you will have me to deal with.
We managed to hold up against the forces they sent to take us out, but the situation on the planet is getting worse by the minute, as it seems like we're just delaying the inevitable. I mean, Lord Espinosa is basically declaring victory at this point, so pretty hopeless, right? Well, we keep fighting, and eventually Alexander, who is still alive, tells us about a chance at retreat, as there's no real way to salvage the situation. Though there's a catch. There's always a catch. We need to fight our way through to a dropship that will take us to safety while more enemies come in. Victoria at this point is getting desperate and orders her forces to kill everyone, including Kamea.
As you command, my lady.
I'm on it. Going hand to hand.
Making it through all that, we get Kamea to the dropship.
Thank you, Sir Raju. Thank you both. I won't forget what you've done for me today. I promise you that.
And just when it seems like it's all clear, Victoria sends even more troops to try and stop us. Okay, it's fine, we just need to hold the line for a little bit, so it shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, Victoria sabotaged our mech, so Roger orders us to save ourselves and eject from our mech, while all by himself he faces off against all the enemy mechs. So yeah, we lost, and we lost badly. Our mentor is dead, and we didn't even save Kameo after all that. So pretty strong opening, right? It does the job of getting you to care about the characters and setting up the rest of the story. Like, your mentor Raju isn't in the story for long, but you'd have to be heartless not to feel something for him staying behind and sacrificing himself. Also, the bad guys feel capable and at times complicated, like for instance Victoria, who as you go through the mission you see wants to just capture Kamea, not kill her, as they are family, but as the chances of her escape increase, with Victoria knowing that if she gets away she's going to be a big problem for the new regime going forward, so she feels forced to kill her to prevent that. Which is good foreshadowing of how far she's willing to go to follow her father's beliefs. Though I also get the vibe she has a lot of conflicting emotions about it, which shows up as anger. She's probably into some really good metal music though. It's all good storytelling that's there through the whole campaign, and if that's got you interested, then give this game a go. It's sold at a reasonable price and goes on sale fairly often, though I do want to go more into the story, so if you don't want spoilers then skip to here. So after the beatdown that was the first mission, we managed to get some luck and get picked up by some mercs who've done work in the past for Kamea's family, and also had their commander killed in the market that's now just a bunch of craters, so they aren't likely to turn us over to the new regime calling itself the Directorate. They even offer us a new job. Then 3 years pass and we've become the commander of the merc company, not because we're great at it or anything, it's just that nobody else wanted the job. While we are surviving, the quality of the jobs we've gotten lately haven't been great. With the last job going so bad, the clients tried to steal our mechs from us after the job was done. It didn't go well for them.
Engaging target.
But we didn't get paid, so the bank loans and bills are starting to pile up, and because we owe so much money, the banks are restricting how far we can travel. So it's time for us to take a chance on riskier but better paying work, which our XO Darius starts looking for. This is when you get a chance to interact with the crew more if you want. They are quite a cool bunch. You can find out about their pasts and get some interesting bits of lore, like for instance talking to Yang, your chief mech tech. You'll get to hear how the fall of the Star League and the Amara Civil War had a huge effect on his planet, changing it from a bit of a paradise world to one that can barely support life. It all happened centuries before he was born, but his planet is still even now dealing with the aftermath of that conflict. He has a sense of loss for what was, but is making the best of it. But back to business. Darius eventually gets a lead on a job from an unknown client who's specifically asking for us, which is odd since we aren't well known, so it's a bit suspicious, but the client is rich and we need the money, so we agree to meet them. Turns out it's a noble from Canopus, a nearby periphery state, whose name is Lady Centrella. It is unusual for someone so high up to ask a small merc company to do a job for them, though it seems she wants this contract done as quietly as possible without any authorities knowing about it, and is willing to pay well because of that. So what's this job? Well, she wants you to escort her engineers to recover an old derelict dropship called the Argo that's currently being used by pirates as a base of operations. I like the setup for this mission. It feels very cloak and dagger, like there's some political intrigue going on and you're not getting the whole story. Like maybe we're being used or there's some key bit of information waiting to smack us in the face. I mean, you can probably figure out what's going on, but it's still interesting. Anyway, we take the job and hope it doesn't end badly. Landing on the moon near the dropship, we take out the defenses and some enemy vehicles. Not too hard.
Alright people, you know what to do. Marines, clear the ship of pirates.
With pleasure, Dr. Murad.
This is when we run into some problems, as now we have to deal with pirate battle mechs that aren't too tough, but the Marines that landed with the engineers aren't doing so hot.
Dr. Murad,
pirates have Alpha Squad pinned down in the Argo's main hallway. Bravo Squad is holding the door to engineering, but you better hurry up.
Sergeant? Talk to me.
We managed to mop up the last of the enemy mechs, though we take a few hits to get it all done. That's when the Pirate Queen shows up, with mechs bigger than we've had to fight before. They hit pretty hard, but are light on armor, so with some good positioning and some really lucky shots, we take them down. Just in time for Dr. Marauder and her engineers to get the Argo going, and reveal why we were chosen for this job. Yeah, that's right, Lady Khmer isn't dead. Turns out she's the actual client and has been in hiding for the last few years with Alexander. The reason she didn't contact you directly was after all the betrayals, she wanted to make sure she could trust you. Also, getting the Argo wasn't just for fun. It's a Star League era ship, which will help her with what she has planned next, which is to take back her throne with money and resources provided by Canopus, who are worried that the Directorate's military buildup over the last few years could cause a major war between the big local powers. Though Canopus don't want to get their hands dirty, so are helping Khmer build an army to get rid of the Directorate. This is where we come in. Khmer wants us to help her win the war for her throne. Not for free, of course. She'll buy up all our debt and remove any travel restrictions we have so we can take jobs where we like. But when she calls, we go to war, and once the war's done, she'll clear all our debts. Oh, and we'll get paid really well for any missions we do for her too. Pretty sweet deal. The campaign does expect you to go on other jobs in the open world, so you can grind a bit to get better gear and mechs and level up your mech warriors, so you'll be ready for the more challenging story missions. I enjoy going around the map and doing other jobs, though I can understand some people just want you to keep doing the main story ones. But to me, the pacing of the story feels better when I did some open world stuff before going back to the main story. Story missions can be much harder than regular ones, so it gives a bit of a break, while giving you a chance to work towards being ready for the next big mission. Anyway, after a few contracts, we're ready for the start of the war, which is a mission on the planet of Waldry. While Khmer's army attack the Directorate forces head on, we'll sneak behind enemy lines to free some political prisoners and nobles being held hostage. It's a very calculated move. Not only will it gain a lot of political support for Khmer, but she can also claim to be liberating people under Directorate oppression. Okay, so like up until this point in the story, you get the impression that the main reason Khmer wants her throne back is because it's her birthright. Like yeah, she's not a full-on power-hungry noble scheming to gain power, though she is very aware of how things work and how to use it to her benefit. And she's not uncaring towards people in general and those she's close to.
You get to that ship, Alexander. I mean it. I will not lose you and my throne on the same day.
But she wants the throne because she believes it belongs to her, and the side benefit is her helping people, when it should be the other way around. It shows how warped and detached the perspective of people in power can get, even if they are well intentioned. And this mission is where Khmer is going to get a reality check. It starts off not too bad with us catching the prison off guard.
This is the Warden. We have an intruder alert. All combat units, prepare to repel hostile.
And the first line of defenses are just tanks and turrets, which aren't too much of a problem, but the prison also has a mech bay and is bringing all its mechs online.
Sit tight, Commander. Lady Arano is aware of the situation. Reinforcements are on the way.
We get a few good hits in.
Fight harder, damn you!
But yeah, the enemies aren't pushovers either. Though luckily Khmer does come in to help take out the rest of the mechs guarding the prison. So time to celebrate the first victory of the war, right? Well, after Khmer sees the horrific things done by the Directorate to prisoners, it's not really something to throw a party about. Also, Alexander's found something that Khmer needs to see urgently.
By the time our forces found him, it was too late. I'm sorry, Khmer. He was here all this time.
Rashu.
Yeah, Raju didn't die 3 years ago. He was a prisoner the whole time, and was most likely suffering a lot before he died eventually. This makes Khmer see the true pain of a people and what the prices of gaining power for power's sake is, and using it to enrich a few at the cost of the many. And she does feel guilty because, yeah, she didn't know all this was happening, but she could have done something to help instead of waiting and plotting for the best time to make a move that would benefit her the most. She could have used that power she had to help. After realizing this, she decides instead of using the Argo as a symbol and a propaganda piece for her taking back the throne as she originally intended, instead she gives it to us to help our merc companies get stronger, so we can fight and beat the Directorate and help her people more. It's a good character moment in the story, I think, which shows her changing to become a better leader and doing it for the right reasons. So getting a new ship is nice, though it's going to cost a lot of money to fix up, but it's well worth it once it has all its upgrades. Thanks to Dr. Murad joining the crew and doing the heavy repair work needed. That said, one of your crew isn't excited about the new ship, and that would be Sumaya, our pilot who can fly the Argo, but is however worried the ship might have issues because it's lost tech. What is lost tech? Well, it's basically all the advanced technology that was lost from the Star League era. You know, the good stuff. It's great and usually extremely valuable, but can be like playing with a loaded gun if you're not sure what exactly you found, and can get you the wrong type of attention. I'm sure it'll be fine. Our next mission has us taking out a dropship command center that will stop enemy reinforcements from landing on the planet where Khmer's army is currently winning. Though before the mission we hear about a terrorist attack that might cause a war to break up between some big players in the region, being the Turing Concordat and the Federated Suns. If those two go to war, it'll affect this whole region of space in a bad way, so we need to win this war against the Directorate quickly before that happens. So back to the mission. It's a bit of a hard one, even the tanks are pretty dangerous on this one. Especially the SRM carriers, who carry more weapons than should be physically possible, but with some help from friendly engineers taking control of enemy turrets and some good tactics against the enemy mix, we managed to destroy the dropship center and take the planet. It's a nice win, though it seems the Directorate is building up its forces with mechs and weapons they shouldn't really have, which means they're probably getting help from the outside. Also, while doing some contract missions on the side, you may notice that Directorate forces seem to be working together with the Taurian ones. Anyway, back on the ship, while going through the Argo's computer drives, Dr. Murad finds some encrypted data, which could potentially lead to lost tech that could maybe help us win the war more quickly. It's a little risky, but the Directorate is putting up more of a fight than expected, and a big regional war might be breaking out soon, so it seems worth it to investigate. Problem is that it's encrypted, though after a few missions we find a noble named Lord Kurosa who's an expert in this type of stuff. He's not so keen on working with us because of what the war has done to his family, but if we do a job for him, he'll change his tune. He wants us to destroy what appears to be a civilian ship that he had some of his people try to investigate, but they got taken out mysteriously. He strongly suspects it's being used to smuggle weapons to the Directorate, which means it's very likely the source of the outside help they've been getting. Though we don't have any hard evidence, so it could just be a regular civilian ship we're trying to blow up. Khmer is also worried about that and says she'll offer the ship a chance to surrender before having to take it out. Can't see this going wrong at all. Going ahead with the mission, it's fairly straightforward. There are some defenses, but nothing we can't handle. So we send some fairly strong warning shots to the ship's fuel lines and request that the captain surrenders, but he refuses, which makes Khmer pretty sure they are a smuggling ship. The conversation gets a bit heated and the captain cuts the comms and tries to make a run for it, so Khmer gives the order.
Let's do what we came here for, Commander. Take that dropship out.
We go ahead and do it, but then we get a surprise visit.
Wake up! Wake up! Run, Russia, put a little makeup!
Victoria's brought a full Lancer mix, which pretty much confirms the dropship was doing something dodgy for the Directorate. Her and Khmer are really eager to tear into each other, but since Khmer isn't on the field, Victoria settles for taking out her anger on us, though she maybe underestimates how strong we are.
Taking the shot.
I will make you suffer before you die.
She's such a sweet talker. We take out the rest of her lance, but she does put up a bit of a fight. Then she gets a bit too close, which lets us jump behind her and do this.
You swine! I will tear your mech in two! No! It's not possible!
Mission successful.
With that sorted, we manage to capture Victoria, who's quite grumpy about it. She does hint that her father is laying a trap for us and we won't see it coming. That's probably not good, but there's nothing we can do about that now. So Kamea tries to find out why Victoria and her father betrayed her, which leads to back and forth about the right way to lead, though it's mostly just threats from Victoria, who at the start of the story was a little reluctant to take out Kamea, but now is fully committed to completely destroying her. And even goes on about the sacrifices she's had to make, which hints she's had to do things for her father she probably knows isn't right, though is maybe in too deep to admit. Like, she sounds fanatical at this point, so maybe we don't need to worry about her dad's plans. Kamea sends Victoria to be a prisoner for Lord Kurosa, since he might want justice for what was done to his family by the Directorate. With that and the mission we just did for him, it gets us enough brownie points to get help with finding out what's on that encrypted drive on the Argo. It turns out to be a lot of information about old Star League Defense Forces outposts, and specifically one that's close by in Directorate space, on a planet that's never recorded anything like that. Which means there's potentially a ton of lost tech and Star League era mechs that, if we manage to capture, would be enough to swing the war easily in Lady Kamea's favour. It could be dangerous, but it's worth the risk, so we make our way there. Though just before we drop down, we get a warning on sensors about another dropship on the way, though the sensors can't make out what type of ship it is or who it belongs to, so it's probably trouble. At least we have an hour's lead on it, so we need to make a move on that Star League outpost now before that dropship catches up. We drop down with Kamea and Yang and try and get in, while Dr. Murad tries to hack into the outpost computers from the Argo.
Okay, the standard approach isn't working. I'm inputting a valid ID, but for some reason the door won't budge. I think I found a workaround though. It'll just be another moment.
This is when the problems start, as whatever Dr. Murad did has now almost completely shut off the Argo and the outpost defenses have come online, with it sending drones to attack us.
Be careful of those things. They're armed to the teeth and coming in fast. And there's probably more where they came from.
They aren't too bad, but they do keep coming, and while we try and make a retreat to the outpost front door, things on the ship aren't going so well either.
We've lost contact again. Keep yourselves alive. I'll call out new contacts as I see them.
The waves of enemies keep coming until finally Dr. Murad gets a handle on the problem.
Got it! Sumire, broadcast this now!
So it turns out when the doctor was breaking into the outpost computer to get the doors open, she accidentally downloaded something very dangerous that took out the Argo, which is now free floating in space. She has managed to contain the problem, but needs everyone she can back on board the Argo to fix it, so everyone except Kamea and Yang head back to the ship to help with repairs. And while they're fixing that mess, Kamea and Yang with a salvage team go to check out what loot the outpost might have. Oh, we just hit the jackpot. Pristine battle mechs with Star League era tech? Nothing's gonna stop us now. Wait, what happened to that unknown dropship that was heading our way?
Attention, forces of the Urano Restoration. I am Commodore Samuel Ostergaard of the Concord Navy.
You are surrounded by a battalion of the Taurian Concordate's most decorated mech warriors.
On behalf of our allies in the Aurigan Directorate, I demand your immediate and unconditional surrender. But I know you won't stand down, Lady Urano. You're the Sword of Restoration. You have a reputation to uphold. And that's good. I wouldn't have it any other way.
I'm going to enjoy painting the ice red with your blood.
Well, shit, that's really bad. Before we even got a chance to get the loot, the Turians captured most of the outpost. Though at least Yang managed to seal the mech bay and got a few battle mechs working, so Kamea and some of the salvage team can pilot them to make an escape. But they're on their own, and we can't send down help because the Argo is still busted. So we need to command a lance of battle mechs we have never tested before. With pilots we have no clue of what they can do against the fairly well equipped Turians. But these are Star League era battle mechs we're commanding, so they are formidable and do send the fear of God into the enemy.
Just a heads up. When we get to a safe distance, I'm going to set off a little surprise I left behind for our Taurian friends.
Surprise?
You'll see. Trust me. You're going to love it.
Anyway, first we need to punch our way through to a friendly dropship, which isn't too difficult with how hard these Star League battle mechs hit. And on the way out we get to see what Yang's surprise is. Turns out he set up and then blew some charges next to outpost ammo storage, which has now totally wrecked the base, preventing the enemy from getting any of that cool tech. It is priceless technology, but yeah, we can't let the enemy have those mechs. Now we just need to escape and...
I told you you would die here. Run, Lady Arano. Run as far as you can. We'll find you all the same.
It seems the reason the Turians are here is something to do with that smuggler dropship we blew up, and also that Ostrogard guy really hates Kamea. Well, can't worry about that, as the Argos just managed to send another dropship for Kamea to escape in, though she's gonna have to fight her way past some enemy reinforcements to get to it.
Lady Arano, we've got incoming assault mechs.
That's a big problem, and it gets worse the longer the fight goes on. Also, we find out that the captain of the smuggler ship we killed was the son of Ostrogard.
Go ahead and run, Lady Kamea. You won't get far. I volunteered for this shit assignment so I can have the pleasure of hunting you down. And when I catch you, I will make you pay for the death of my son.
The fight is hard and we do take losses. Though we managed to take out the last of the enemy assault mechs and make an escape.
This isn't over, Lady Arano. I will find you. And my son will be avenged. Pray that your uncle's soldiers reach you before I do.
Back on the Argo, Dr. Murad has quarantined the scary program that caused all the problems which nearly blew up the ship, and to be extra safe, she shut down the hard drive it was stuck on, so it's no longer a problem. And the doctor suggests nobody goes near it or try to delete it, as that might cause more trouble. With that sorted, why did the Turians declare war? I mean, we did kill Ostrogard's son, but he's just an officer in the Turian army. That doesn't seem to be enough to cause a nation to go to war. So it turns out that terrorist attack that happened on the Fed-Sun-Turian border has the Turians worried about a war breaking out between them. And they're desperate enough to team up with the Directorate to keep their other borders safe. Whatever the reason, the war just got a lot hotter, and the Turians have also rescued Victoria and taken out one of our allies. Also, their forces are a lot stronger than the Directorate's. Like, Ostrogard just by himself has a Fortress-class dropship, which is no joke. It was designed to hold off an army of battle mechs and win, while carrying battalions worth of vehicles, soldiers and mechs, which by itself is enough to swing the war against us. The smart choice in this situation would be for Kamea not to fight them and wait for a chance to strike with our army. But avoiding them means innocent people are going to die, and Kamea isn't going to let that happen again. So instead, Kamea is going to need us, a single company of mercs, to do the near impossible and go up against the Turian assault forces. Yeah, the next few missions are going to be rough. One has us protecting a dropship with refugees that are trying to evacuate, while holding off a ton of enemy battle mechs coming in from all directions.
Concentrate all fire on those dropships. Take them out, or you'll have Ostrogard to answer to.
Somehow we managed that one. Then next we need to do a dicey raid behind enemy lines to steal some valuable resources while being sneaky. Though if we do a good job, it gets us a nice payout at least. Then it's back on the defensive as the Turians try to take out a spaceport where Kamea is trying to send supplies to her people to prevent them from starving to death, while holding out again against a lot of enemy mechs and vehicles, while even more come in via dropship.
Keep pushing them back. Show the Taurians that we will never stop fighting.
Oof. This one I barely managed to keep up with, but managed to scrape by and got it done. We are surviving, but the Turians have much more they can still throw against us, which we aren't going to last against. Luckily, while we were doing all that, Alexander, with some help from our Canopus allies, found some information his family was keeping his insurance against Lord Espinosa's Directorate. He doesn't know what it is yet, as he can't open the files, but it's got to be important with how well protected this information is. Though on the way to go pick him up, he gets captured, but manages to put the files in a dead drop for us. Kamea, however, wants us to rescue him first. Since we can still track him, she also insists on coming on the mission, which is fine. She is bringing an Atlas 2 worth. So it should be easy. We just need to get past a few turrets and a mech guarding the building where he is.
Wake up! Wake up! Run, Russia, put a little makeup!
Yeah, Victoria has Alex, and he isn't in the building. She used his transponder signal as bait to lure us in.
New sensor contacts. I've got hostile units converging on your location.
Damn you, Victoria. Taking hostages is a coward's move. If you wanted to fight me, you should have come yourself.
When I send you to hell, be sure to tell Lord Carosas that.
So now we've got to fight our way out of a trap. We take some hits, but having Kamea's Atlas 2 on our side does help. but Victoria keeps sending more mechs against us.
Enough of these games, Kamea. Do you want to win little Alex back? Come and find me. We'll be waiting for you, won't we, Lord Madeira?
I'm sorry, Kamea. I evaded capture for as long as I could, but...
That sound you just heard was his jaw, Kamea. It was every bit as fragile as I thought it would be. Consider this a promise kept from our first reunion.
I'm coming for you, Victoria. Do you hear me?
Though with all these enemy mechs, we don't have enough time to rescue Alex and get the files at the dead drop. And if we don't get those files, we are going to lose the war. So Kamea, against a very strong desire to save Alex, makes the hard choice to go for the files and hopes we can rescue Alex later. Back on the Argo, we find out what this information is and if it was worth all this effort. The file is a recording of Lord Espinosa ordering his daughter to carry out the terrorist attack on the Fed-Sun Tauran border. This was in order to heighten the chance of war between the two and allow the Directorate to offer itself as an ally to the Taurans if there was a war. You can tell in the recording that Victoria really didn't want to do it, but her father pushes her to basically slaughter innocent people so the Directorate can survive. Showing this recording to the Taurans almost immediately turns them against the Directorate, and without a powerful ally, they are mostly done. Time to go to the capital world of the Directorate and graciously give Lord Espinosa a chance to surrender and turn over Alex. He is surprisingly very calm when talking about surrender, and acts as if he still has a move up his sleeve, while demanding we leave this one planet to him and Kamea can have the rest of the Oregon Reach. Oh, and he's keeping Alex's insurance. With how cunning Lord Espinosa is, and seeing how far he's willing to go to get his way, you know he's going to do something. But Kamea thinks he's bluffing, so goes ahead and launches an invasion of the planet with nearly her entire army to finish the war. Here we go.
You should have listened to your uncle, Lady Arano. We have unfinished business, you and I. The Iberia still carries a full complement of battle mechs, plus enough firepower to level a city. And you know it's too late to withdraw your forces. When I reach Cormadir, I will drown your restoration in a sea of fire. Every dog in Arano colors will die. You took my son from me, Kamea. My hope for the future died with him! Now I'm killing yours.
And there it is, Lord Espinosa's last devious plan. He got Ostrogoth to defect from the Turan so he can get his revenge on Kamea. And he can do it quite easily with their Fortress class dropship. Since Kamea has committed her forces to the battle, she can't retreat without taking big losses. But if she stays, Ostrogoth is going to land his dropship and destroy her army, so she loses either way. So it's time for a crazy plan to save the day. Remember that super dangerous program that infected the Argo from the Starlink base and nearly destroyed the ship? And how Dr. Murad said nobody should go near it, like, ever? Yeah, she's going to try and fiddle with it so we can use it as a weapon against Ostrogoth's dropship. Though, to get it onto Ostrogoth's ship, we're going to need to capture a director comm base so it'll accept the transmission of the program. We'll need to take Dr. Murad into the comms base, with her sitting as a passenger in one of our battle mechs, and hope she can make this plan work. It's a hard mission since there are loads of battle mechs and turrets guarding the base. We are going to be taking some hits to get in.
Okay, it's official. Rumble seats are a bad idea, and I don't like getting shot at.
But we do have some engineers with us who can reprogram the turrets to help us.
Powering down enemy turrets, Commander. Give us a moment and we'll rewrite their targeting protocols.
And with a bit of effort, sort out those enemy battle mechs and get the doctor to the comms tower to do her thing.
And on that note, I'm going radio silent for a bit. I need to concentrate while I work on this. I'll be in touch soon.
Commander, be advised. I'm seeing heavy activity on all Directorate comm channels. You're about to have company.
He's not joking either. They land a full lance of mechs right in the middle of the base. And they come out swinging. Good thing we have those turrets on our side, which keeps the fight in our favor, and eventually we destroy all of them. So, all done, right? Nope, one more dropship comes in with another Lancer mix. Though the pilot in the enemy Jaeger isn't the brightest, there's a good reason you shouldn't store the ammo in the center torso of your mech, and this is why.
Locking in all weapon systems. That's a kill.
There's also 2 assault mechs, but we swipe the leg from one of them and finish them off on the ground. The other, well, they get close enough for us to jump behind them and show off what a precision strike can do to rear armor.
Hell yeah!
We've survived all that, but it seems Ostergaard is about to land his dropship.
Attention, forces of the Orano Restoration. This is Commodore Samuel Ostergaard, formerly of the Concord Navy. As of today, I no longer serve my country. I come to you as a grieving father, not a Taurian sailor. My actions are my own. In 3 minutes' time, my ship will enter weapons range of your position. At that time, your lives will come to an abrupt end. I suggest you pray to whatever gods you...
With Ostergaard sorted, Kamea has another chat with her uncle. He's all doom and gloom about how the Reach is much weaker after the war and will probably be taken by one of the bigger powers in the future. And there is a bit of truth to his words, but also he didn't need to do a coup to help speed things along. Either way, he finally surrenders, though someone has a problem with that.
Wake up!
Victoria trusted and did all those terrible things her father wanted her to do, but now that he's surrendering it means it was all for nothing. So Victoria challenges Kamea to a duel for the Reach, her lance versus Kamea's. And Kamea tries to reason with her, but Victoria is in too deep to see how far she's fallen, and threatens to kill Alex if Kamea doesn't fight. The game's story is kind of coming full circle here. As you might remember at the start of the game, Victoria and Kamea never got to have that tourney match, but now they'll finish it, though both of them have changed. Victoria during the coup didn't want to hurt Kamea at first, as they are family, and wanted to do what she saw as the right thing for the Reach. But as the war dragged on, she was manipulated by her father to see no other options, and was convinced by him to do horrible things, which in her mind was justified as helping the people of the Reach become stronger. It's gotten to the point now where she has to keep fighting to rationalize the things she did, or she'll have to confront the truth that she didn't need to slaughter people, and that she is probably a monster for doing those things. Whereas Kamea started the war just wanting her throne back and to get revenge on those who took it from her. She's learned the hard way that taking a Machiavellian approach, like her uncle, will get results, but the costs are your morals and the people you claim to want to help. Which she saw suffer because she didn't do anything for years and only did what she deemed necessary to win. She learned compassion during the war, and even when challenged by Victoria, who she probably hates after what she did to Raju and is currently doing to Alex, still doesn't want to kill her and tries to talk her out of going any further, which is this duel that will see one of them die. Even Lord Espinosa tries to talk his daughter out of it, but she's committed, and beyond being reasoned with at this point. Victoria came prepared. All her mechs are heavy or assault ones. Hers is the most terrifying, a king crab with a pair of maxed out AC-20s that each do massive damage, combined with souped up flamers that if she gets near enough to use will shut down most mechs with overwhelming heat.
Come closer, dear cousin. Come closer.
Oh, and it's got a huge amount of armor too. Let's rather deal with her squad first and keep our distance from her. We managed to take out 2 of her mechs, but she gets into range to use her AC-20s that hit like a pair of freight trains. But we are wearing down the last of her squad, though maybe I underestimate how far she can reach with those flamers, and she cooks Kamea a little. Her obsession with taking down Kamea does give us a chance to finish off the last of her squad and focus everything on her king crab. We managed to take an arm off the beast. She is relentless though, and is still gunning for Kamea, which gives us an opening to knock her down. And like any crab on its back, it's pretty much defenseless. Kamea even offers one last chance at surrender.
Your father has already surrendered, Victoria. Your cause is lost.
then he is weak. I will never stand down.
But she won't stop, so no choice but to end it.
Got it.
With Victoria defeated and the war ended, Kamea manages to free Alex and imprison her uncle, and becomes crowned High Lady of the Reach, though she wonders if it was all worth it since so much has been lost during the war that the Reach's future might be in doubt. Well, in my opinion, if the only way the Reach could exist was in the way Lord Espinosa was doing things, which was brutally suppressing its people and having to commit mass murder in order to gain allies, then it was probably doomed to fail in the long term anyway. Even his allies the Turians didn't trust him. And if you're spending more time defending the nation from your own people, then something has gone really wrong. At least with Kamea, there could be a chance at creating something that would help the people of the Reach. The game's story is great at showing the opposing reasons people fight for power, and how in their minds they can justify doing horrible things to gain that power. And it's also interesting to see the scheming and plotting that adds to the drama of the story. It's done well enough that it kept me interested all the way to the end, and you get all that while bashing big mechs against each other, which is fantastic. It really got me wanting to see more of the universe in BattleTech, considering this story is just a little side note in the vast number of stories and big events that happen in all of BattleTech. So it's a bit sad that this game is probably not going to get a sequel anytime soon, as the developer harebrainedschemes have had a tough time lately. And the publisher Paradox Interactive doesn't seem too keen on doing anything with BattleTech, which is maybe a good thing considering what they're doing with their own franchises. Still, it is a shame as there are a huge amount of stories and gameplay possibilities that could be done with this type of game. Like they could do anything from the Star League era to the clan invasion, or just some of the internal conflicts in any of the great houses. And gameplay wise, they could add things like aerospace fighters to even infantry to add another dynamic to the fights. To maybe even making mech warriors more specialized with what skills and mechs they pilot. Like to me, this game is as fun to play as XCOM and has as much potential to be as big as that series of games. It's got mechanics that need a bit of effort to learn and aren't perfect, but it's pretty great once you know what you're doing. And the story is so good that it got me into the BattleTech setting, and might be a really good starting point for you if you want to get into this universe. So I can very much recommend you trying this game out, it's definitely worth your time. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did like it, then consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, see you next time.
Hey, look!